Hello, everyone. So a large number of us have been working remotely for the past years, but are we doing it effectively? Are we taking all advantages of remote work? In this presentation, I'm going to try to talk to you a bit some tips and tricks on how you can set an organization, and also some tips and tricks that you can use for yourself to work more effectively while doing remote work. So let's start by recapping some of the advantages of remote work. This will not be by far a big list or anything like that. The goal is not to defend remote work here, just to recap some of the advantages. So if an organization decides to do remote work, one of the big advantages that it gets is that it allows to hire a larger talent pool, because the organization is not constrained by hiring in a specific city where people could travel to the office. So if we hire people remotely, we can hire people from all over the world. We can hire people independently of where they are and focus on what really matters, which is the skills of the people and how much they adapt to the company culture. At the same time, when people are working remotely, there have been some studies that show that people have an increased focus because they have less distractions. For instance, if we are working in an open office, we get noise all the time, we get distracted all the time by people just walking around, people playing around. So if we are working from home, it's way easier to get more focus. At the same time, other studies have showed that remote work also allows for a higher radical candor when it comes to interaction between teams and between people in the teams. So people tend to be more honest and straightforward and direct to the point when working remotely compared to when working in face-to-face in the office. Remote work also allows for a better quality of life for the employees. When people can choose where they want to work from, this helps them a lot on their quality of life. One of the reasons for it is that people don't really need to commute. They can choose where they feel happier and feel that they're more productive to work, and they don't lose the time in the traffic, lose time in the subway, and so on. So they have more time for what is important for them. At the same time, remote work also provides some challenges that in this presentation we will try to show how we can overcome some of the challenges presented here. So in a remote work environment, the sense of belonging to a team first and also to an organization, it's harder to obtain. And when people don't feel that they belong to organization, the company culture suffers. And from there, it makes it harder to make the different people and different teams in the organization work together towards a common goal. At the same time, for certain people that work remotely, isolation is more common to them, or is a more common factor. So, because when people work remotely, it's more common for people to be alone. And some people have a hard time dealing with this. This can lead to some, let's call it psychological problems. So this is one challenge that comes with remote work. Also, at the same time, for people that work remotely, the separation of work and personal life is not that straightforward, especially when people cannot have, let's call it an office inside their home if they're working from home. So if they cannot separate the space where they work from the space where they watch TV, go to bed, and so on. When these things are mixed up, this makes it really hard for people to disconnect, because they will go to bed and they will start thinking about work again, or they will not stop thinking about work. Okay, so let's start with some processes and practices that can help us overcome some of the challenges that remote work comes with. First, one of the things that I believe is important is for us to define as an organization from the different flavors of remote work, which is the one that we want to follow. So the different flavors of remote work, the ones most common are remote first, hybrid, where people go to the office some days a week, and remote friendly, where people go to the office, but they tolerate people working anywhere. It's important as an organization to define the flavor that we want to apply, because this will allow for the teams to know what to expect, and also to set some rules of and some rules and practices that will allow people to work better together and collaborate more effectively together. It's important that these practices and rules are set more from the company-wide perspective, but allowing at the same time for some local variance in the teams, so that the teams are empowered to choose what is better for them. At the same time, it's important to define working hours. This also is related with sync versus async work that we will come up afterwards. When we set some working hours in the team, this, especially if we set the working hours so that we maximize the working time together of the team, this would allow very much for the productivity of the team to increase, because the team will be working most of their time together. So like I said, so it's important that we foster consistency from an overall perspective, but we allow for small variations. And it's also important that all of these rules start to become part of the culture and identity of the organization. Because the identity and culture of the organization is what allows for people to feel part and know what to expect in, by definition, unpredictable technological world. So if we can define and make this part of the culture of the organization, the chances for it to go well will increase easily. At the same time, there are a few practices that we can introduce in the teams, or that we can encourage in the teams, that will help with remote work. One of these practices is pairing and mobbing. This, as you know, helps to reduce the knowledge silos in the team, but it also helps with fighting isolation in remote work, because people will be working together. They will be collaborating with at least one person, or hopefully more people in the team, towards a common goal. So the sense of isolation will tend to disappear. At the same time, it's important that we also have a practice of one remote, all remote. So my suggestion when it comes to the different sets of flavor we mentioned before is that we definitely go for a remote first one, because that allows us to take all the advantages of what remote work has to offer. One remote and all remote at the same time means that we treat everyone in the same way. Because let me give an example. So imagine that we have people in the office and we have people working from home. If the people in the office make a call with people from home and they are sharing a laptop, or they are in the TV with a problematic, let's say, sound system in the room, the people from home will not just feel left behind, but it's easy for people that are in the office to start having parallel conversations, not using the microphone and so on, and this would make it even harder for people that are working from home. So one simple rule that we can introduce and we can encourage to avoid situations like this is to make sure that when someone is remote, we treat that everyone is remote, treating everyone the same way. So in a situation like this, even if we had people in the office, we would encourage everyone to jump in their laptops and do a call with the people remotely, so like everyone will be remotely. At the same time, even though we are very apologists of the remote work, it's important that we encourage frequent get-togethers. I would say that once a quarter for a couple of weeks, it would be really, really beneficial for the creation of a team spirit between all the members of the different teams. And this will also allow the teams to come up together, not just prepare the quarter, but get to know each other way better compared to when they are working remotely. And at the same time, this will also allow them to do a bit of variation instead of being always working in the same place. Last but not least, here is make work visible. So this the Kanban principle is very important, not just from working perspective or from a managing our work perspective, but this is very, very important in a remote work environment that it gets completely, it really needs to happen in a remote work environment, because if the work is not visible, people will get lost really, really easily. This, when people are all in the same space, this would be less problematic, let's put it like this, but in a remote first world, this would be completely disastrous. Continuing with practices and now going to the video, which is also what we're doing now, the video call. So there are a few practices that we can use that will ease and that will also help us take full advantage of remote work. One of these practices is always keeping the camera on. Always keeping the camera on allows for the eye contact between everyone. And as you know, visual part of the communication is very important, because we don't speak only with our voices, we speak with our bodies, and this visual part is very important for us to understand each other and understand exactly what we mean. At the same time, it also fosters a sense of community and a sense of belonging to everyone that is on the call. Also, other simple practice that can help with remote work is muting ourselves while we're talking. So there are configurations in most common programs that allow us to mute by default. So this is also very straightforward, and it has a larger impact than it seems. Together with avoid working from noisy places. This is very, very important, because if someone is working from a noisy place, it gets really hard to not just understand what they're saying. And that, together with people working from places with low bandwidth, makes it impossible for people to work together. So make full advantage work, and most companies offer even remote work allowances. So make use of those to make sure you don't work from noisy places and you have a proper internet connection, so that you can take full advantage of your day-to-day work. At the same time, another important practice for related with video is one that we're doing today, which is actually record important meetings. This would allow not just to for documentation purposes, but this would allow for everyone to feel included. Imagine someone had a health situation and could not join an important meeting. The person could just get an email with the recording or check Confluence or whatever with the recording and understand what happened in that important meeting. Well, all these simple practices help create an environment and create a culture that is not just prepared, encourages remote work, and takes all the advantages of remote work. Together with video etiquette comes also calendar etiquette. All of this also seems common sense, but it's less common sense than it is. Let's put it like this. So when creating a meeting, it's very important that we define an agenda for the meeting, and we also define an outcome we want to achieve from the meeting. Also, we should invite people that are needed for that meeting, and we should not just bring everyone for the sake of it. Together with that, there's what's usually called the rule of 2 feet. When people feel that they're not contributing to the meeting, they should just leave. And the culture of the organization should take care of making sure that people don't feel offended because people left the meeting when they felt that they were not contributing to that meeting. Together with that, it's important to respond when we get a meeting invite. Clearly respond, not just left an answer, because this would help the people that schedule the meeting understand if they have quorum for that meeting, if they need to reschedule, whatnot. This is really, really important. The same with when people go on holidays, making sure they put it in their calendar. They put it in as out of office. That will reject all existing calls and all calls that might be scheduled in the future. This is very important, and this helps everyone that works together. And in the end, it helps people feel respected by each other, because it helps people understand that others, when they go on holidays, understand that, or they care enough about the others to make them aware that they're not available. At the same time, setting our working hours also helps with setting our working hours in the calendar also helps with not getting invitations for meetings outside of working hours. Because especially when you have people working in different time zones, it's hard for people to understand where everyone is located. So if you set your working hours, when someone is scheduling a meeting, they will understand if you're available or not. Moving now for instant messaging. Also, some easy practices that will help remote work, definitely. One is use your real photo, not a dinosaur like you see here in the picture. Also, make sure you complete your profile with information, for instance, what team you work on, what is your role. Doesn't need a large organization for people to lose track of who works on which team. And imagine you want to speak with a product manager or with the engineering manager of a specific team. If you don't know, it's easy. Or if you get pinged by someone and in that profile, the person doesn't say their role or in what team do they work with, those simple things will help interactions with everyone. Together with marking yourself as away. So there are tools that actually sync with your calendar and help with that, but imagine you're not available. You go to the doctor for 2 hours, make it unavailable in the instant messaging tool. That's really easy to do, and that will also help people not expect a response quickly when you're not available. Something that is actually very common, and I think it's very important, is that I think we as humans have the tendency to do this. I think it's very important to not fall into the trap of discussing difficult topics in never-ending threads. When this starts to happen, just schedule a call to discuss the business, and then after that is complete and there's a decision or a compromise made, put it in that thread to close the conversation and to have also a place where it's documented the decision. Because voice conversation together with the visual clues that we were discussing before is way easier to understand, and it's way easier for us to not get misunderstood compared to just text. So this is definitely a recommendation that I would really, really encourage everyone to follow. All in all, some general tips still about the instant messaging. Let's starting by make sure that all our decisions are transparent and they're all visible by everyone. So make sure also that we increase the signal to noise ratio by creating channels for specific topics instead of just sending private messages to 6 or 7 people and then making decisions in those private messages that no one has access to. This will also help to ensure that the right people are reading the information that is relevant and useful for them. Also make sure that you don't use this kind of things like add channel or add here in Slack and other similar instant messaging tools, because this creates noise. You do something like this in a channel with 500 people, people will mute the channel. They will not get, it's questionable that you have a message that will be useful and important for 500 people. So be very, very careful when you use something like this. Still about documenting and communicating the data. There are certain tools that help with that. ADRs that started as architecture decision records and then grew up to be any decision, called any decision records, can be used, and this can be even a repository, a Confluence, whatever, can be used and communicated to everyone. So this it's important that the communications are, the decisions are well communicated and well understood by everyone. Because one thing that breaks culture is people feel that they don't know about the decision. So it's important that these decisions are communicated to them. Together with that, it's important that people can challenge those decisions, but once a commitment is made, this commitment is followed and is not, commitment is not made and then people go into the opposite. Moving to the people side of things when it comes to remote work, Starting with the hiring, it's important that when we go for hiring people, it is challenging in general, let's put it like this. It's important that we try to find people that are mature and responsible and that can work as team players. This is important in general, but I feel it's even more important in a remote setting, especially if we go for the practices that we mentioned before, like pairing and mobbing and having team ownership and so on. This is, if we're not able to hire, let's say, mature and responsible people, because sometimes it's hard to find people like this. It's important that we hire for people that want to learn, people that are willing to learn and they are passionate about learning. When that is the case, this helps the chances of success are higher, because these people will, even though they are less experienced, they will grow fast. And as you know, age or years of experience don't necessarily match skills. One thing that I think it's very important, at least the way that I see remote work, is to make sure we are able to hire in more or less similar time zones, let's say with 2 or 3 hours difference. The reason for that, from my perspective, is that we want to maximize the time that people work together. We really want the team to work together and have a sense of the team. We cannot have 5 people in the team and every one of them one is in Australia, other is in India, other is in Europe, and other is in the US, because if that would be the case, people will not be able to work together. They will have 1 hour per day together or something like that. We want to really create a sense of team. People will need to work in similar time zones so that they can spend most of their day together and really work together most of the time, most of their working time. Here at NewStore, we try to follow more or less the rule of plus 1 hour, less 1 hour, with some exceptions around the Central European time zone. A bit about what I said before, or picking up on what I said before about people that love growing or love learning. When it comes to growing people in the teams, I think there are a few principles that help not just with that. One of these principles is a team composed of autonomous and empowered people, or empowered, let's call it product engineers, people that are here to solve customer problems, not people that are here to solve technical problems. We are here to solve the problems that our customers have. When we have this, and when we really have people committed to this, and we give them time and space for learning, both with training budget, allied with time, let's say 1 day per week or 1 afternoon per week, to invest their time on learning something new, trying out some new technology, or trying out some new way of solving a problem the team have. I think this makes people grow very fast and makes people also happy, and in the end does wonders for the team, and also does wonders for the organization. So let's talk a bit about some tools that can help all of this that I mentioned. So when it comes to instant messaging, I think that Slack is by far the one that can help us the most, or can help organizations the most. We compare it to alternatives, at least that I know of. Slack is really straightforward to use. For doing pairing, mobbing, and so on, even though we can use Slack huddles, I think Tuple is a bit superior. So if the company is willing to invest the money or the cost in Tuple, I think it's worth it. I think Google Suite is also way more advantage compared to other alternatives like Microsoft and so on. So starting with Gmail, going all the way to Google Slides, Google Docs, spreadsheets, and so on, and Google Drive. This provides really a big number of advantages compared to the alternatives. When it comes to collaborative work, let's say user story mappings, doing retrospective, and so on, Miro is also provides priceless advantages. For managing the work of the teams, I think, and for keeping track of the work of the teams, even though most organizations use Jira, I think Trello, in most cases, does the job. We don't need to make it more complicated than it needs to be. And for certain situations where people cannot avoid working from a noisy background, let's put it like this, or their microphone is a bit problematic, Crisp can benefit a lot. This reduces background noise, and this also reduces some microphone noise, so this can help a lot. So we are basically at the end of the presentation, so thank you everyone for listening.